No one saw it coming. Not Paris, not Washington, and certainly not Abuja. For decades, Ghana was the pride of Anglophone West Africa, a nation of diplomacy, democracy, and quiet strength, a trusted ally of the West, a respected pillar of ECOWAS. But in the shadows of Ouagadougou, Bamako, and Niamey, something has changed. A quiet storm is building. And now the unexpected has happened. Ghana, yes, Ghana, is drifting toward the revolutionary winds of the Sahel, the same winds that carried Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Colonel Assimi Goïta, and General Abdurrahmane Tchiani to the front lines of Africa's anti-imperialist movement. What did Ghana's new president, John Dramani Mahama, just do that rattled the corridors of ECOWAS headquarters? Why are French diplomats scrambling behind closed doors? And why are the Sahelian leaders, the most sanctioned men in West Africa, suddenly smiling? This isn't just diplomacy, this is a continental tremor, a shift that threatens to tear ECOWAS in two and redraw the map of West African power. Welcome to a new chapter in African geopolitics, where lines are being erased, alliances are being forged in fire, and history is no longer written in Paris or Washington, but in the heart of Africa. Before we dive in, please like, subscribe, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Ghana's strategic pivot begins. In January 2025, Ghana ushered in a new era, a new president, a new vision, and quietly, without fanfare, a new direction in foreign policy. Within weeks of assuming office, the new Ghanaian leader made a move that stunned political watchers across West Africa. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the revolutionary leader of Burkina Faso, sanctioned by ECOWAS and vilified in Western media, was formally invited to Accra. Yes, invited. A man seen by France and the US as a threat to regional order, now shaking hands with Ghana's newly elected president. Not in a backroom, not in secret, but in front of the world. The message was unmistakable. Ghana, once the quiet bridge between Francophone and Anglophone Africa, is now stepping onto the stage with a bolder tone. A tone of independence, realignment, sovereignty. For years, Accra played the role of mediator, balancing ties with the West while cautiously engaging its Sahelian neighbors. But today's Ghana is no longer tiptoeing. The invitation of Traoré wasn't just symbolic, it was strategic, and it sent shockwaves through Abuja, Abidjan, and Paris. Behind the photo ops, sources say that the two leaders discussed border security, arms manufacturing, infrastructure partnerships, and even the potential for Pan-African defense collaboration outside the ECOWAS framework. One high-ranking Ghanaian official, speaking off record, said, "The Sahel is not a threat, it is the future, and we must face it or be left behind." The timing couldn't be more telling. ECOWAS is struggling. The alliance has lost three key members, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, who formed the Alliance of Sahel States, AES. And now Ghana, once seen as the very glue of ECOWAS, is flirting with the unthinkable, open collaboration with the breakaway bloc. Domestically, the move is winning hearts. Ghanaian youth, long disillusioned with foreign domination and economic hardship, are voicing their support online. Hashtags like Njau Ghana Rises, Sahel Spirit, and African Unity Now are trending in Accra and Kumasi. On the streets, murals of Thomas Sankara are reappearing, alongside fresh paintings of Traoré with clenched fists and Pan-African flags. This is not politics as usual. This is the rumbling of a new alliance, not built in Geneva or New York, but in the heart of Africa. One forged in common struggle, common pain, and a shared dream of liberation. Ghana is no longer just watching the Sahel revolution. It's reaching out to be a part of it. Why Ghana is shifting sides. To understand Ghana's shift, you must first understand its pain. For years, Ghana was hailed as a model of stability, democratic, peaceful, and open for business. But beneath that image, a silent crisis was brewing. Debt, dependency, disillusionment. By 2025, Ghana's foreign debt had crossed $60 billion, with IMF repayments tightening the noose on the national budget. Interest payments swallowed public funds, leaving little for schools, hospitals, or job creation. The government, even with a new face, was forced to implement painful reforms: tax hikes, subsidy removals, and austerity packages. The people were told, sacrifice now, prosperity later. But later never came. While ordinary Ghanaians tightened their belts, foreign companies raked in profits from gold, cocoa, lithium, and oil. Multinationals held mining concessions spanning decades, while entire communities in the north lacked clean water and electricity. And then, across the border, came a different story. A louder voice, a bolder path. Burkina Faso expelled French troops. Mali nationalized key industries. Niger stood firm in the face of sanctions and foreign threats. And most of all, the youth in those countries cheered, not rioted. In Accra, young Ghanaians began asking tough questions. Why can't we build our own weapons like Traoré? Why is gold extracted in Ghana, but we still beg the IMF for loans? Why do we celebrate Nkrumah's legacy while rejecting everything he stood for? The Pan-African energy was contagious, and the new Ghanaian president, a former military man himself, was listening. Unlike his predecessor, he didn't just speak the language of diplomacy, he spoke the language of sovereignty. In private meetings, he called for economic independence and African solutions. In public speeches, he warned that Ghana must not be a beggar on its own land. When Ibrahim Traoré arrived in Accra, thousands showed up to welcome him, not as a foreign dignitary, but as a brother in struggle. Social media erupted. Pro-Sahel influencers praised Ghana's courage. Even voices in Mali and Niger began floating the idea. Could Ghana be a fourth pillar of the AES? While no official statement was made, the symbolism was clear. Ghana was no longer interested in being a neutral referee. The new administration was choosing its ground, and that ground was Pan-African. The youth feel it. The elders sense it, and the world is beginning to watch, nervously, because if Ghana fully aligns with Traoré, Goïta, and Tchiani, it won't just be a regional shift, it'll be a continental one, and in this new Africa, neutrality is no longer an option. Traoré, Goïta, and Tchiani's grand strategy. To many in the West, the Sahel Alliance is a rebellion. But to Africans paying attention, it's something far more powerful, a blueprint. At the heart of this blueprint are three military leaders, young, disciplined, unbought. Captain Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso, Colonel Assimi Goïta of Mali, General Abdourahmane Tchiani of Niger. Each of them rose to power amid chaos, and each of them made the same bold promise: we will no longer be ruled from Paris. We will rebuild Africa with African hands. In the months that followed their rise, the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, was born, a Pan-African confederation forged not through bureaucratic summits, but through shared resistance and action. The strategy was clear, simple, and radical. Expel foreign military bases that no longer serve African interests. Take control of national resources, gold, uranium, oil, and reinvest in local development. Build sovereign military industries to end dependence on NATO weapons. Launch a shared national anthem and cultural identity to inspire unity. And most importantly, forge an African alliance that answers to no one but its people. Burkina Faso began building hospitals and arms factories. Mali pushed for educational reform and local industry. Niger developed regional defense protocols. And together they declared, an attack on one of us is an attack on all. But here's where it gets serious. With Ghana now leaning toward collaboration, the Sahel strategy is entering a new dimension. Ghana brings coastal access, English-speaking influence, and financial credibility. It sits at a crossroads between Francophone and Anglophone Africa, and its pivot toward the AES could legitimize the alliance like never before. Imagine a security pact that spans from the Niger River to the Gulf of Guinea. Imagine a joint currency born not in Brussels or Washington, but in Ouagadougou and Accra. That's the nightmare of ECOWAS. That's the fear in Paris. That's the headline the mainstream media doesn't want to write. Because when you add Ghana to the Sahel equation, you're no longer talking about rebellion. You're talking about a revolution. A revolution with teeth, with territory, with legitimacy, and now with the potential for continental leadership. ECOWAS in turmoil. Once hailed as the backbone of West African unity, ECOWAS is now facing a legitimacy crisis so deep it may never recover. 3 of its members are gone: Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, walking out in protest and slamming the doors behind them. They accused the bloc of serving foreign masters, not African people. But ECOWAS didn't listen. Instead, it threatened war, imposed sanctions, and tried to isolate the breakaway states. That was its first mistake. The people didn't side with ECOWAS, they sided with Traoré, Goïta, and Tchiani. They saw leaders who stood firm while ECOWAS bowed to France and the IMF. Then came its second mistake: silence. As foreign troops looted resources and drone strikes violated Sahel airspace, ECOWAS looked away. But when African soldiers took power to defend their land, ECOWAS condemned them. The hypocrisy was too loud to ignore. Now, in 2025, the regional body faces its most dangerous threat yet. Not from guns or coups, but from Ghana. Ghana isn't breaking away. It's not withdrawing from ECOWAS, at least not yet. But what it is doing is worse. It's rewriting the rules of engagement. Hosting Traoré, opening dialogue with AES, whispering of new trade and security frameworks that don't involve Nigeria or the West. And inside ECOWAS, the tension is boiling. Nigeria, burdened with its own internal chaos, is desperate to keep the bloc intact, but increasingly isolated. Ivory Coast and Senegal, longtime allies of France, are watching Ghana's moves with clenched jaws. Togo and Benin are on the fence, caught between economic survival and popular uprising. Guinea, though still technically within ECOWAS, is walking a tightrope of neutrality, leaning ever closer to the Sahel. The cracks are showing, and Ghana's quiet defiance is quickly becoming a blueprint for others. If Ghana can welcome Traoré, some ask, why can't we? If the Sahel can say no to Europe and still survive, why can't we? Even among ECOWAS insiders, the whispers are growing louder. Is the West African bloc still relevant in its current form? Is it time for a new kind of union, one built in Africa by Africans? What was once unthinkable is now on the table, because if Ghana keeps leaning east toward the Sahel, then ECOWAS may fracture completely. A continental shift is underway, and the old guard is running out of time. The people versus the presidents. The truth is, revolutions don't begin in boardrooms, they begin in barbershops, in student hostels, on the timelines of Twitter and TikTok, in the rhythm of Afrobeats lyrics and whispered conversations in taxis and market stalls. In Ghana, the real alignment with the Sahel isn't happening at the top, it's happening from below. Go to the campuses of Legon or Knust and you'll see it. Young people wearing hoodies with Sankara's face, debating Pan-Africanism in dormitories, quoting Traoré like a folk hero. One Ghanaian student posted, "I've never seen a president like him. Traoré makes me proud to be African. Sahel spirit, Africa for Africans. Down with imperialism." These hashtags are no longer niche, they're movements. And Ghana's youth, intelligent, frustrated, and unafraid, are driving the momentum. They've watched their country suffer under the weight of foreign debt, while cocoa farmers remain poor and gold leaves their soil in French-marked trucks. They've heard too many speeches about shared prosperity from presidents in luxury suits while they fight for jobs after university. Now they're looking north to Bamako, Ouagadougou, and Niamey, and seeing something different, something raw, imperfect, yes, but honest. A revolution led by young soldiers who speak their language, leaders who don't ask for permission from Paris, leaders who aren't afraid to say, "No more exploitation." In Accra's Jamestown district, a massive mural of Captain Traoré has appeared, painted by local artists under the title, "Africa Will Rise Again." In Tamale, rallies have erupted with crowds waving Pan-African flags and chanting, "Africa Unite," and even in churches and mosques, sermons now echo the call for self-reliance and dignity, messages once spoken only in political corners. Ghana's new president may not have fully crossed the line into Sahel territory yet, but the people have already stepped forward, and this public energy is forcing the hands of politicians. Because in this generation, the leaders no longer lead, they follow. Across West Africa, it is the people who are redrawing the map. It is the people who are calling time on colonial leftovers. And it is the people, young, defiant, and united, who are now holding presidents accountable to the dream of Pan-African freedom. A continent at the crossroads. What we are witnessing is not just a diplomatic gesture, not just a handshake between two presidents. This is a recalibration of power, not just in West Africa, but across the entire continent. Ghana, the land of Kwame Nkrumah, the pioneer of Pan-African unity, is finally stepping back into its prophetic role, not as a servant of foreign banks, not as a silent spectator in colonial legacies, but as a sovereign voice, bold, unchained, and standing beside its Sahelian brothers, from Accra to Ouagadougou, from Bamako to Tamale, from Niamey to Kumasi. A new drumbeat is echoing, and with it comes a question that every African nation must now answer. ECOWAS is trembling, not from war, but from irrelevance. Because when Ghana invites Traoré, it invites more than just a man, it invites a movement of sovereignty, dignity, and Pan-African rebirth. The West is watching, France is whispering, the IMF is calculating, but none of them can stop what has already begun in the hearts of the people. Africa for Africans is no longer a slogan. It is becoming policy. It is becoming reality. And if Ghana fully embraces this vision, aligning with Traoré, Goïta, and Tchiani, then the balance of power in West Africa is gone forever. And you, yes, you watching this, are part of that story. If you believe in this movement, if you believe that Africa must rise, united and unafraid, then don't just watch, act. Like this video. Share it with pride. Subscribe to Pan-African Hub and leave a comment. Africa is one. Because the world needs to know, Africa is no longer divided by borders. We are connected by purpose. This is Pan-African Hub, and this is just the beginning.